DeShaun Watson has officially requested a trade despite speculation for a few weeks of whether he would request one or whether he would play for Houston in 2021. It's no secret as to why he has done this, as this team is horrendous and he is in a very bad situation. Now, there was of course the note that when DeAndre Hopkins was traded last year, he was quote a 2 out of 10 level mad, but when they hired new General Manager Nick Caserio without really ever asking his opinion, he quickly became a 10 out of 10 level of mad. And largely due to this and the ignorance of the Texans front office, DeShaun has requested a trade, and you really can't blame him for doing so. But with him not playing in Houston next year, at least that's the way it looks now, the question becomes, where will he play and who will trade what for him? Obviously, some teams get eliminated fairly quickly, but we are going to dive into all of the possibilities in today's video. Now, before we get started, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as each only takes a second to do and it would be very much appreciated. Now let's begin. We're going to start today's video with this. Pretty much every team should call and ask what the price for DeShaun would be. The Chiefs, Bills, and Seahawks are exempt from this, and you could definitely make a case the Ravens are and the Packers are too. Now, Aaron Rodgers is better than DeShaun, but he is 37 years old and DeShaun is 25, so it is pretty clear who the better long-term, as in the next 10 years, who the long-term answer is. But aside from those teams, everyone else should call and at minimum ask to see what it would take. But when discussing this, you can eliminate at minimum 3 more teams right away, which are of course the Titans, Colts, and Jags. Houston will not trade DeShaun in the division under any circumstance, and that's really all there is to it. The Colts in theory do make sense, but at the same time, the Texans will not give a division rival a franchise quarterback if they can prevent it, which this time they can. For the better part of 20 years, they've consistently played against Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck, and they're not going to just say, here you go, and add DeShaun Watson to that list. The Jags quarterback problem will be solved within 3 months when they select Trevor Lawrence number 1 overall, and the Titans have back-to-back postseason appearances, including an AFC Championship game appearance under the quarterback play of Ryan Tannehill. So these 3 teams are eliminated right from the start. And while we're on teams we can eliminate the Cardinals and Chargers, because the reality is they would have to trade Kyler or Herbert for Watson, and there would be picks involved somewhere in this compensation for somebody, but quarterback for quarterback trades just do not happen. The last true QB for QB trade involved the Broncos and Bears, and the Bears gave up Kyle Orton and multiple first-round picks for Jay Cutler. So due in large part to that, those teams, along with a few others like the Browns for example, can be eliminated. DeShaun will be going to a team that needs a quarterback, and one that can give up the required draft capital in order to get him. So even teams like, and we'll use the Giants as an example here, DeShaun is better than Daniel Jones, and nobody would, or should at least, argue that. But they're not going to give up on DJ or even trade him and multiple first round picks to acquire DeShaun, because it's not going to happen. On that roster specifically, there are a lot of holes and Watson would not be traded there. But there is another team in the Giants division that Watson could very easily be traded to, and that is one we will discuss, which of course is the Washington football team. Washington could trade for DeShaun, and DeShaun would be wise to welcome that trade with what they have there. In Washington, he has a clear number 1 receiver in Terry McLaurin, a solid running back going forward in Antonio Gibson, a beloved and good coach in Ron Rivera, and lastly, something he did not have in Houston this year, which is a defense. The Texans defense gave up the 6th most points in the league this year with 464, while the football team gave up the 4th fewest in the entire NFL with 135 less points given up, making that 329 total. I would imagine DeShaun views this as a desirable situation on the field, as they have all of the players we mentioned plus a great coach. The only reason Watson may not want to go there is due to the owner Dan Snyder. DeShaun has played for an owner he clearly does not like for a few years now, and given the bad reputation Dan Snyder has more than earned, he may not want to go to DC, which would be going from one bad owner to another. But Washington, talking strictly from a football perspective, is a great place where Watson could go. Now, before we move on to another team, I do want to say this. DeShaun has a no-trade clause in his contract, which means if the Texans hypothetically agree to a deal with a team he doesn't want to go to, and we'll use the Lions for example, they will not be in contention for him. By the way, we are using him quickly for an example. If they agree to 3 first-round picks or whatever the case may be, and DeShaun says, look, I've seen what they've done to Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, and now Matt Stafford, I don't want to play there because I don't want to waste my career there, and on top of it, Michigan is cold cold and I want to stay in a relatively warm climate if I can control it, which I can. Then, simply put, DeShaun will not go there. It's that simple. And what benefits Watson and more is his agent is David Mulugeta, who is the super agent of super agents, and essentially is the Scott Boras of the NFL. He has gotten his clients several $100+ million contracts, and DeShaun is no exception to that. And now that that is cleared up, let's continue on to other teams DeShaun could go to. Denver is another option, as John Elway seriously struggles with drafting quarterbacks. Good for him for building a Super Bowl champion roster back in 2015 and Super Bowl 50, but since then he has drafted Paxton Lynch and Drew Lock to be franchise signal callers, and Paxton gets swept under the rug for how bad of a draft bust he was. But Drew Lock had a horrendous second year, and it is fair to say he will not be what DeShaun Watson is now at any point in his career. Could Drew turn his career around? Yes, he absolutely could, but to be the player DeShaun is something entirely different. So Denver is an interesting team, and I would imagine they will be going very hard after either DeShaun or Matt Stafford. Stafford is obviously not the topic of today's video, so we discussed the possibility of DeShaun going there. This is a team that has players like Melvin Gordon, Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton, and Noah Fant. Those four players are very solid weapons, Tim Patrick by the way, and they have a good left tackle in Garrett Bowles, which is something a lot of people, myself included, never thought would be said given how he started his career. But they have solid players on the offense, with the missing link being the quarterback position. DeShaun is 25 years old, and I would ask this. Aside from Peyton Manning for 3 years, when is the last time they had a true franchise quarterback? Remember, Jay Cutler started just 2 full seasons for them, and Jake Plummer started 2 full seasons with 11 games or more played in 2 others. So we're talking early to mid 2000s since they've had a true franchise signal caller, for multiple, like 4 to 5+ years that is. And John Elway is the last quarterback they've had that was a franchise quarterback for 5+ years. So we have to go back to the 90s when DeShaun Watson and multiple other NFL stars were born for Denver. So if I were John Elway, I would be doing everything in my power to try and get DeShaun Watson to the Mile High City. So next is the 49ers, and they, like Denver, make a lot of sense. The 49ers select 12th overall, and what needs to be stressed about this team and this organization is if they're making a trade for a quarterback, it has to be this offseason. San Francisco is too good of an organization and has too good of a roster to consistently pick in the top 12 of the draft, and unless injuries hit again the way they did in 2020 for them, they will not be picking here for at least the next few years. They went to the Super Bowl in 2019 for a reason, and that was with Jimmy Garoppolo being their quarterback. Jimmy isn't exactly a superstar, and if they can get there with him, and really close to a win at that, then they can most certainly get there with DeShaun Watson and potentially win one with him. Now, I want to preface this next comment with how good of a job both Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have done as the head coach and general manager of the 49ers since taking over in 2017, but they cannot keep kicking the can down the road with quarterbacks, and they cannot keep waiting for one to fall to them. If somehow, someway Justin Fields falls to them at 12, then they would have to take him. But if the situation comes to that, and they have that pick on draft night, then they have already made the decision to not trade for DeShaun. This roster is loaded with talent, with players like George Kittle and Nick Bosa, and while those guys are franchise cornerstones, they need a quarterback to help them win the Super Bowl, as Jimmy is not that guy. Now, just being honest as I can be, I do think San Francisco will trade for either Watson or Stafford. Now, there was a rumor as I was making this video on Saturday, the Saturday before the Super Bowl, that Stafford will be traded by the Super Bowl, so that could very well be the case. But San Francisco will not be in this position with this type of draft capital again for quite some time, and they have to commit to someone and get their guy at quarterback. While Fields or someone else in the draft, whether it's Zach Wilson or Mac Jones or anybody else really, could be a good long-term option, any of those rookie quarterbacks certainly will not be Stafford or Watson in 2021, which is certainly the 49ers Super Bowl window, in the Super Bowl window to be clear. DeShaun to San Francisco is out of conference, which the Texans would obviously prefer, and this is a place Watson would want to go. Getting to work with guys like Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle is something no quarterback would turn down after working with Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks for a whole year. This makes too much sense, and the Texans should do everything they can to try and get DeShaun to end up in the Bay Area. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think. Should DeShaun go to Washington, Denver, the Bay Area, or another location we didn't discuss in today's video? Carolina also makes a lot of sense, though we didn't discuss them in depth. But I will see you guys Monday. Have a great weekend. See you guys next time. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.